Academica Media. You are listening to Charter School Superstars, bringing you the voices of an education revolution.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Ryan Kairalla from Doral College. Our guest this week on the program, one of my favorite people to talk to on this show. She is the executive director of the Florida Charter School Alliance, a nonprofit advocacy organization for the charter school movement in Florida. In October, the Alliance will be sponsoring the Florida Charter School Conference in Orlando and is on the forefront of celebrating the 25th anniversary of the charter school movement in the state. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting www.flcharterschool.org and www.charterschoolconference.com. We are happy to welcome our friend Lynn Norman-Teck onto Charter School Superstars. Hello, Lynn.
Hi, Ryan. So happy to be here.
It's been too long since we've had you on the program. As you can see, we've upgraded our space a little bit. We got fancy graphics. We got the StreamYard streams now, so you don't have to go to our studio in South Miami anymore. New environment, but I like to think the same old home atmosphere around here, and we certainly love talking to you in the virtual or the physical setting.
Me too. I love it. I love that you guys are always ahead of the curve.
Well, speaking of ahead of the curve and things changing with time, our timing of having you on the show, I think, is particularly valuable because in addition to the Florida Charter School Conference coming up, which I want to ask you all about because I'm going to be at this conference. I'm presenting a panel on this conference with some of my Academica media friends, and so we're excited about it. But in addition to that, it is also the 25th anniversary of the charter school movement in the state of Florida, which I think, it's exciting for me. I've kind of seen it grow from humble beginnings to simple legislation to something that's really dynamic and powerful that is educating, countless students throughout the state, really changing education outcomes, particularly during this pandemic right now. And it's just amazing to see how, we grew from just a couple little schools in Florida to this massive sector that's doing a lot of good. But I'd like to hear it from your voice. Can you reflect a bit on how the charter school movement in Florida has grown over the past 25 years?
Yeah, I'm like you have seen it move and grow. My favorite part about the movement is that it's parent driven. Not one child is assigned to a charter school. You're not zoned to a school, and it's completely driven by a parent's decision. And that's a testament to the schools in Florida. So we've got 25 years under our belt and grown from 5 schools in 1996 to close to 700 campuses now and 341,000 plus K-12 students. And we've, my schools run the gamut of tiny schools that are in a neighborhood serving a particular child to municipal charter schools, to performing arts, to, college prep, you name it. And our schools, charter schools have really understood today's parent and shifted with the needs of parents and the needs and the talents of children. And that's what just is the best part of those 25 years. It's not the numbers, but it's the quality of the product.
Since public education is very much a state-by-state project, and every state has their own legislation, has their own governance of education, the charter sector and how much it's thriving can vary a lot from one state to another. And so what has been key for you? If you had to name one thing, what is it about the charter school movement in Florida specifically that's really allowed it to thrive so much during this period?
Mm-hmm. Well, we had some legislators who have really understood parental choice, from Governor Jeb Bush to other governors who have understood what parents wanted and understood the changing landscape of education. Because, there's so much research out there about the way children learn, and to see our lawmakers understand this and put it into practice and really lay the groundwork for the charter schools to do the heavy lifting. Because yes, you can have great legislation, but you need a cooperative movement. So you need legislators to understand and pave the way, and ensure that funding follows the child. But then you need some great educators and community folks that are thinking outside the box that really put those funds to good use. So it's a perfect marriage in Florida, but we've had some really forward-thinking leaders in our state.
I'm inclined to agree with that. As a lawyer, it's something I speak to a lot in my own work, where people ask me, why is the charter education movement so strong in Florida? Why is dual enrollment, which is something I work in a lot, so strong in Florida? And it really does start at the top. Florida has been the beneficiary of some really smart, well thought out, progressive legislation that, was pretty good to start with, but has also been shaped and molded by terrific policymakers over the years that have been listening to community input, listening to stakeholder input. And it's still a work in progress. There's still a lot that's going to be done. And every year there's always new things added to the legislation to make it strong. But it's really something that, as an attorney, I'm infinitely impressed with the comprehensiveness of our legislative scheme in education. And I really do think in a lot of ways it's a model for a lot of other states. And as I said, though, it is a work in progress. So I'm curious about this point here. Your organization, among other things, is an advocacy organization. You're always trying to fight for even better policy for public charter education in Florida. So as you look upon the horizon here, that we've had our 25 years. What about the next 25 years? What are some of the biggest points that the FCSA is looking at in terms of legislative advocacy that they think can take charter education to the next level in Florida?
That's a great question. There's so much.
I can imagine.
Number one, we see advocacy as relationship building. So every couple of years, every 2 years, our state gets new senators. Some are reelected, but our role, number one, is to educate these folks. Because not all of them come from the education, with education background and an ever-changing education background. So that is number one advocacy that we do. So as we look towards the future, continue to educate lawmakers and break down those myths, and then bring them up to speed on what's happening. You mentioned dual enrollment, and I remember when one school, Mater Academy, had 5 seniors graduating with a dual diploma from a community college and high school. And now we're seeing hundreds of kids within a high school. Most of them come from Title I schools graduating with a dual diploma. And we couldn't do that without, number one, educating lawmakers. And it's not just about data, but it's about data, and it's about those stories that are heart and soul, and saying, look how we're lifting kids out of poverty. Look how we're breaking the mold of what has been done in the past. And with dual enrollment, it's not just about getting them college ready, but putting some kids in a mindset to say, oh, this is absolutely doable. So I think the next 25 years is continuing that conversation with legislators, and on a local level too, because yes, we have our capital, but on the municipal and county level too. So they understand, so they become our partners in this. So and of course, input from parents. So it has to be 2-way, 3-way. It's like a highway of communication. So we meet parent demand because we have to stay with that, and then continue that conversation of how can we push the bar and how we can continue to have flexibility to push that bar.
I love your perspective on advocacy. Let me just say, because when I think advocacy, I think it from my own sort of lawyer lens, advocate. So I think like somebody pounding the table, trying to tell these legislators, these are the policies we need to have. Look, we have some great outlines here. Just go make the law. Fight, fight, fight. And what you're saying is, before you can even do that, it's about the relationships. You have to build the relationships. You have to educate these people you have to educate before you can advocate, really. And it sounds like that's been a key component of your organization's success in creating excellent outcomes for charter schools in this state.
Thank you. Yeah, that was coming into this. I was, you read those headlines, like the teachers union, we need more money, but they never ever explain why. Like I put it in a perspective of what those funds are going to do. And that's definitely how we approach it.
Well,
Thank
that's just a great general lesson for people in your line of work, regardless of what thing you're advocating for. It has to start with the relationships and the education before you can just, fight for your policies and argue for the merits of them and say, we need more money or we need this reform. Why?
Why?
Tell them why. Educate, create those relationships. I'd like to talk to you now about kind of a more recent development in charter education that I found pretty interesting, and that is the increase in enrollments during the pandemic. I think many people would have predicted when the pandemic started that it would have an adverse effect on Florida charter schools, that a lot of parents might flow to traditional public schools or flow to private schools because of just the tumultuousness of the pandemic and what was created from it. But the data has shown the opposite. Since the pandemic, charter school enrollment in Florida has grown 3%. And I'd love to hear from you. What accounts for that? Are you seeing any data that's suggesting why this is happening?
Well, there's data that the National Alliance did this study, and all the state associations helped them gather the data, and it showed growth. But from my perspective, I saw it happening as the pandemic was happening. Charter schools, because they've got that flexibility and because the nature of the charter school governing board member and educators, their nature is to think outside the box. Let's make this happen. And I saw the schools in Florida shift incredibly quickly to serve kids in an absolute different way. And whatever it took. And there was no formula, Ryan. Some schools,
I know it.
Right. Some schools did an amazing job jumping to virtual because they had done it and they had the bandwidth and the experience, a lot of it from the dual enrollment, just getting, students what they needed to work from anywhere. Some schools were creating the packets and having drive-through lines of parents picking up these, old school work packets. But what I saw across the board, the constant was the continuing communication with parents, keeping them informed, keeping them engaged, keeping the students engaged, keeping their staffs engaged, and that was key. And word of mouth, if there's ever a testament for word of mouth and doing a good job and reaping the benefits from it, it was during the pandemic, because I, like you, feared our schools would lose enrollment. And the opposite happened. When you have a 3% increase across the board, that's phenomenal. And that's a testament to the work our schools are doing.
It was so inspiring.
Yeah.
To work in charter schools and just to see during what was probably the greatest amount of adversity I think the charter school movement and charter schools in Florida have faced in modern times, and just to see all of these principals, teachers, parents, students, advocates, community members come together and get us through this. And it wasn't one size fits all. Every school adapted to the pandemic in a different way. But that, again, is a testament to the flexibility that charter education affords. It understands that every school is going to be different and is going to need to do different things. But man, did these charters come through. And 3% growth during the pandemic, incredible.
Absolutely. And there were some states that the kids were still home. No packets, no learning. They were home as people were figuring it out. And in Florida, it was the opposite. And I would have these meetings with state leaders across the country, and they'd be like, "You're open?" I was like, "Yeah, we're open." Driving through, serving lunch. It's happening. We're having PD online. I mean, literally, charter schools didn't stop. And that was absolutely, you're right. This is fodder for a great movie.
Without a doubt. Lynn, I'm excited to see you real soon at the Florida Charter School Conference this month. It looks like it's going to be incredible. You have Governor Jeb Bush who's going to be speaking in the opening general session. That's really exciting when you want to talk about people who were the founding fathers of this movement, who believed in it when it was very, very small and helped turn it into what it is today, and is still working really hard in this area to maximize school choice. What are you excited about most with this conference? I imagine you're really busy with it right now.
Yeah, well, planning and getting ready for all the sessions is definitely an exciting part of it. we are busy. We're going to have a booth. So I have staff at the booth all day Thursday, Wednesday at the kickoff. Excited to see the speakers. I can't wait it's a town hall with the Commissioner of Education and Governor Bush. And he is always has a great view of what's happening next in education. So that's very exciting. We're also participating in the opening session. And then we've got 2 sessions that we're doing. Number 1 is the School Leadership Fellowship, and that's a grant, using a grant from the CSP, the federal grant, and through the Florida Department of Education, we launched a charter school leader fellowship to train charter school leaders. Now, you can go to, a state university and get your leadership, but we understand that the charter school leader needs a little bit different point of view. So our fellowship, and we're going to talk about it at the conference, throws in other things that charter school principals do, because you've got to be almost like the mayor of a small city. You've got zoning issues and facility issues, and you have to do marketing. So we're very excited about that, and we're presenting that with the State Department of Ed. And then we're also talking about the importance of parent advocacy. So I've got a session that talks about how to encourage your parents and how to, give them the right tools to be an advocate for your school.
I can't wait. I'm so excited for this conference. Obviously, we didn't get to have it last year, which just makes me all the more excited to see all my friends throughout the state again. You can find out more about the event by visiting www.charterschoolconference.com, and you can find out more about the Florida Charter School Alliance, Lynn Norman-Teck's organization, by visiting flcharterschool.org. Lynn, this has been such a treat. You're my hero. Thank you so much for joining us on the program this week.
Ryan, you're so great, and I can't wait to participate in your podcast there, because I think that's the best part of the conference. Because I encourage my schools to do different kind of communications with their stakeholders and parents. And I always send them your way, like, look at what they're doing. Look at Academica Media, copy it.
Bless you. Thank you. Such kind words. Thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you all for checking out Charter School Superstars. We'll see you next week.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.